So welcome everybody to Estate Planning 101. I just have some housekeeping for us today. We're asking all our participants to be on mute, but we welcome your questions. So if you want to have a little piece of paper and pen nearby and jot down your questions, we'll save them to the end. We'll ask that you submit them through our Zoom feature at the end. And we're looking for suggestions on how to improve our presentations, but also if there's any topics you'd like to see in the future, things about Rivermead or things about senior living that are of interest to you are likely of an interest to somebody else. So again, I am Jennifer Coles and I am the Community Sales Advisor here at Rivermead. Also, we have today Dan Moore, who is our Assisted Living Sales Advisor.
Hello, everyone.
And there's Dan. So how we're going to start today is a quick overview of Rivermead, and then I will make the introductions of our panelists. Many of you are here looking at Rivermead. You've probably been out in the marketplace and looking at other senior living communities. And if you've seen one, you've seen one. We're all a little bit different how we operate. And I think one of the things that makes Rivermead stand out is our culture. Our culture is built on 30 years of experience, a lot of resident involvement. We are what's known as the Type A Life Care Contract. It's an upfront entrance fee. There are refundable and non-refundable options. And then there are monthly fees, all of that guaranteeing a below market rate for your assisted living, nursing care, and memory care down the road. And today we'll have on the panel Rivermead's CFO, Chief Financial Officer Jamie Connolly, who will go into a little bit more detail about how these contracts benefit you and estate preservation. We have a not-for-profit mission. We are one community. We have two campuses, but we are the Rivermead community with two campuses. We have 181 different independent living options here, different square foot styles of floor plans, apartments, cottages, and villas. We also have 102 assisted living and memory support apartments and studios. When we have availability, we can offer that as what we call a direct admission. So that's a direct admission into assisted living or memory support without having to go through the traditional continuum of care. And the important piece to note about that is that care in assisted living and memory support is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is an overview of our campus. If you see my cursor here at the top, I'm hovering over the Mead campus, which is our original campus that we built 28 years ago. We are split down the middle by Powers Bridge Road, and then we have our Village campus that we opened 11 years ago. So combination of all of this is the independent living, assisted living, and memory support spread out over our 96 acres. And I think that is one of the things that really stands Rivermead out from other communities. We're nicely situated on this piece of property. Most of our residences have beautiful green space views, views of the woods, views of gardens and lawns and grass. So you really feel like you're nestled in here in the outdoors, lots of places to explore nature, and just really the beauty of the Monadnock region. And we have another video on our website, a Rivermead overview that goes into more detail. If you'd like to take a look at that, you'll learn a lot more about our residences. But today we're going to talk more about estate planning. This is an overview of the Mead campus. This is drone photography. See, it's lovely. It's just situated so nice here. And this is our Village campus. And in the background, in the distance there, you see PAC Monadnock. But really, it's all about the lifestyle, right? You get to come and live at Rivermead and not have to deal with expensive home maintenance. You come to Rivermead and all of that's included. And that allows you the freedom to explore your pursuits, the things that you're interested in, whether it be fitness, recreation, social activities. That's really the lifestyle here and the culture here. One meal a day is included in the dining venue of your choice. And just, again, some of that freedom from home maintenance and chores, it just allows you to pursue your passions. You can see here, we have a picture, two ladies with pickleball rackets. That's become quite a passion here for folks at Rivermead and really across the country. And there's informal and not formal sort of programming. So examples would be things that happen in our auditorium, classes, things that are on our schedule that people sign up for ahead of time. And then there's just informal gathering that happens. These ladies playing cards or sitting out in the courtyard traditionally every Friday. They're probably out there right now, and they're having a glass of wine or a beverage and just informal social activity. It's comfort, it's peace of mind, knowing that you have neighbors and friends nearby when you need them. So today's panel will include Jamie Connolly, who is our Chief Financial Officer. He will talk about the benefits of our contract, the benefits of the tax deduction, and some of the financial obligations that Rivermead has to its residents. We will have Hazel Hensel, who is the Managing Director of Grove Street Fiduciary here in town. Grove Street has helped many residents move to Rivermead and do estate planning things. So she'll have a good program for you. And Corey Warden. Corey Warden is the owner of the Estate Organizer app. Corey's got an interesting story to tell from the adult-child perspective. So I'm going to pass this over to Corey. I'm going to close up my camera, and Corey's going to take on the full screen here.
Hello, and thanks for having me here today. Glad to be here speaking with you about the importance of organizing your estate information. So a little backstory as to what brought me to this place. My mother was sick and close to the end of her life. My husband and I, we live in Colorado, and we went out to be with her in California for what turned out to be the last 2 weeks of her life. She was mostly prepared as far as her estate went. It was pretty simple. She didn't have a lot of assets. But even still, she was worried that maybe she forgot something and that I wouldn't have everything that I needed to settle her estate. To be honest, I felt badly that these were some of the last thoughts that were weighing on her, and I tried to assure her that everything was in place. So after she passed, we realized we actually were missing some things. For example, some of her counts, her beneficiary information was out of date. We also discovered we didn't have the title for her vehicle. So watching me try to navigate some of these challenges prompted my husband to say, there ought to be an app for this. Well, you don't know my husband, but he is the million ideas a minute guy. And I listen to most of his ideas, but I don't usually act on them. But this one was different because I really felt, yes, there ought to be an app for this. I mean, surely I'm not unique here, and there will be many adult children who have to go through this at some point with their parents. So my goal became to create a place where all relevant estate information can be stored securely and accessed when necessary. Obviously having a will or a trust is imperative, as is making sure all of your accounts have named beneficiaries. So once you have your will or trust, having a place to put that is, will be able to be accessed when needed by who it's needed to be accessed by was really my focus. And I also learned, the will and trust is some of it, but there's so much more information. I mean, we have so many details to our lives, and I really wanted there to be a place for all these other details as well. For example, in your trust, you might say who gets your BMW, but you also need the title to register that vehicle and insure it, particularly when you're in another state. Any instructions that might be related to your pets that are not covered in your will, like special diets or medications. Pets are very, they have a lot of details as well. Usernames and passwords for everything. I mean, we have so many accounts these days: email, retirement accounts, your Netflix, your AT&T. I mean, you name it. My mom was definitely an open book, so she gave me all of her passwords, at least all the ones that she knew or could remember, which is a whole other challenge, right? But one thing we missed was I never got her voicemail password. So to this day, I mean, I never was able to check her voicemail. That would have been nice. I also think creating a list of people who you want to attend your funeral or end of life celebration. I mean, why not? Why not make a list and help your children, take some of the guesswork out of it for them? You could also add contacts that might be related in other ways to your estate, such as financial planners or CPAs or attorneys. And while healthcare related documents obviously would not be relevant, when you're gone, I still like to encourage people to organize these documents should a family member need to advocate on your behalf, particularly from afar. I mean, I've spoken to many people about this, and they've said how much it would help them help their parents with doctors, caregivers, and pharmacies if they had access to this information. So, some folks wonder, when should you start gathering this information? And I'm a planner, so I think it's never too early to get prepared. I mean, I think once you have assets and a family and you alone have access to information that someone else may need in case you aren't able to act upon that information, it's time to get organized. And then, once you get all of your information together, I think you can breathe a little easier. Although I don't think estate planning and organizing is a one and done event. It's definitely an ongoing endeavor. I mean, anytime there is a change in your life circumstances, your estate should be updated. So once you have all your information in one place, the next big question is, who do you decide to give access to it? And this is a highly personal decision. When I was first envisioning this app, I thought I really wanted to encourage discourse between generations, as I had heard from people that, they really wanted to broach the subject with their parents, but they didn't know how to begin. They didn't want to seem greedy or pushy or, just upset anybody. But everybody is different. Some may be an open book. Some may not wish to discuss their financial details with their children. And the good news is that it works both ways. Parents can allow for access to the information right away so they can discuss it as a family, or they can set it up so that access is available after they have passed. And, it could also be set up to where a professional such as a CPA or an attorney is the access point for the information when it's relevant. But either way, you can have peace of mind knowing your data is organized and secure. So thank you for your time. And if you have any questions at the end, I'd be glad to answer.
Great. Thank you, Corey.
You're
And
welcome.
the name of the game here is peace of mind. That is really the point of most of this, is for peace of mind for families. So thanks. So next up, we're gonna have Hazel talk about wills and trusts and all that fun stuff. She said she could talk all day about, so we're ready for you.
Good. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for including me in the program. And you made a good selection. There's some overlap between myself and what Corey just said, as I'm sure there's going to be some overlap with what I add to what you've asked me to talk about and what Jamie talks about. So as Jennifer mentioned, I am one of the two managing partners at Grove Street Fiduciary. We're a fee-only fiduciary firm right here in Peterborough. I'm a certified financial planner. And as Jennifer mentioned, we have helped many folks on their journey to Rivermead residence, from determining if their assets can support the initial and ongoing investment through the application process. I've just lost, I can't see anybody. There you are. Thank you. Through the application process, which is a lot of data gathering, a lot of organizing, a lot of making sure that documents are up to date. Then we help folks make sure that they take the best strategy towards planning their finances to deploy them to reduce their present, future, and even possibly next generation tax liability, realizing unrealized gains with the nice medical deduction that your Rivermead fee gets you, taking advantage of converting IRA assets to Roth IRA, etc. There's a number of strategies there. We've also worked with many estate planning attorneys. There's several good ones right here in town and in the state, to make sure that folks' documents are appropriate, up to date. They're robust in that they include all provisions that are necessary to achieve the objectives. And they're fully documented and understood, this is very important, as Corey mentioned, by all parties who will be responsible for carrying them out. Specifically today, Jennifer asked me to talk about why and how one can go about establishing a will or a trust that works with a will, what the difference between the two strategies are, and also describe what a financial power of attorney, what a healthcare power of attorney are all about, and a living will. I'll also talk about a few other things that I'd like to include. First, a few recommendations, and this is going to be a little bit of overlap with Corey, but it's good to repeat, it is important to record an inventory of your assets and your liabilities. Make a list, include property as well as your financial assets. Be sure to include account numbers and policy numbers. Keep your records organized. Let your estate planning agents know where you keep these records, whether it's paper or electronic. Add the information needed to access your accounts, like Corey mentioned, usernames, passwords. If you've set up dual factor authentications to a cell phone via text, which is very common these days, you'll have to make sure that someone knows how to unlock your phone. Record contact information for the people who will be affected by your estate plan, your agents, your beneficiaries, as well as doctors, pharmacy, attorneys, your tax advisor, financial advisor, your veterinarian. the funeral director that you may have already arranged for your services with. Very important. And keep copies or record the location of your most recent important documents, such as your estate planning documents, life insurance policies, pension and social security benefits, deeds, vehicle titles like Corey mentioned, etc. And estate planning is about two main things. You want to plan for the transfer of your wealth after you're no longer with us. You also want to plan for a potential incapacity and control of your finances while you're still with us. There's multiple ways to transfer your wealth. It's best to keep it simple. It's important to keep it up to date. Make sure beneficiaries don't get out of date, as Corey had that experience. Then make sure that your estate planning team are all on the same page. Your agents need to know that they are agents. You shouldn't assign an agent to someone and surprise them with it after you're no longer with us. You should share your plans with them and make sure they understand the legacy you want to leave. Give them the opportunity to ask questions and clarify your wishes. Because reading something on the page is very different than hearing it from the person who created that document. You can transfer your wealth with a just a will and go through the probate process. The probate process is a state court filing process that requires forms and filing fees, and you need to wait for the court to process your documents. Also, probate cases are public information. So if you wish for your estate distribution to remain private, you would want to establish a revocable living trust rather than a will. Another downside to transferring your estate by a will is that any account that is in your name only, those assets are frozen. So if you don't have a joint account holder or someone named as a beneficiary upon your passing, the folks that you leave in charge of your estate after you're no longer with us will not have assets to pay your mortgage or pay a car payment or pay a caregiver. So those are the main reasons why a will without additional above and beyond planning can be burdensome. It can take a year for a probate case to be completed. And if you have property in more than one state, for example, you've got a lake house in Vermont, you live in New Hampshire, there's a probate court case in every state where you own property. So that's important to know. A will direct your executor to gather your assets, handle the payment of taxes and debts, and your executor is responsible for making distributions to your beneficiaries after you pass. You don't want to pass away without a will in place. That's a whole other complication that I won't take time here to go into. Now I'll talk a little bit about a revocable living trust. One of the great things about a revocable living trust is it can be of assistance to you while you are living. A will is only an instrument that is in place once you're no longer with us. So if you decide at some point during your time that you do not want to be the trustee of your trust any longer, and you want to delegate that asset to a trusted child, a trusted advisor, a trusted friend, your living will, you can basically hand over the reins of your financial life to this person that you're entrusting. It also can include provisions that allow the handing over of the administration of your trust assets in the event of an incapacity, which we never know when that's going to happen, but it is common. Moment. With a revocable living trust and a will that just pours your assets over to your trust, there is no probate case. There's no delay. There's no additional cost at the time of your passing. Really, your successor trustee steps into your place. Therefore, they can more efficiently and more effectively administer the distribution of your trust assets. It does require that you title your assets to the name of your trust. So that's very important to do. Your vehicle, your Rivermead deposit refund form should be named to be payable to your trust if there's a balance upon your passing. Your financial accounts, your brokerage accounts, if you will, stocks that you hold, etc. A trust does not get involved typically with an IRA or a Roth IRA. They pass by beneficiaries. So every account beneficiary that you have in place needs to be kept up to date and documented. I'm going to move on now to powers of attorney. There are two types of powers of attorney. One is for legal and financial matters. It's called a general durable power of attorney. And a power of attorney is in place to the person that you name as your agent, and it grants them broad powers, which end upon your passing, to allow them to access your finances and take care of financial and legal transactions should you not be able to. A healthcare power of attorney controls healthcare decisions only when you become unable to make decisions on your own. This document also is no longer in place upon one's passing. A living will, you may have heard of 5 wishes. This is a document that does a really good job at spelling out living will provisions. It spells out how you want to be medically treated or not in the event of your incapacitation. There's a few other documents that Jennifer didn't ask me about that I'm going to chime in on that go along with an estate planning package. One is a HIPAA authorization form. A HIPAA authorization, and Corey alluded to this, will allow a person to communicate with your pharmacist, with your healthcare provider, with your primary care physician, to have access to your medical records so that they can speak with your agent about your care to help you. Lastly, second to last, you can leave a letter of instruction above and beyond what's in your trust, in your will. If you have personal assets, such as jewelry, a car, heirlooms, that you want to include in your estate plan to govern the distribution of these assets, just to make it very clear to your agent that, you know, mom's diamond necklace is going to go to this person and dad's car is going to go to this person. It just makes it much easier for those that you leave in charge. And with a letter of instruction, you can change that letter of instruction without hiring a lawyer, amending your trust. You just need to have it witnessed and kept with your other important documents. Lastly, another thing that Corey mentioned is it's really nice to put down on paper what you would like your final arrangements to be. This is not a legal document. It's just a document that you put together, and it can be helpful with, oh, by the way, I've already prepaid for my funeral expenses and I'm using this funeral home. I've even seen folks list the type of music they would like to be at their service, you know, the readings they would like to have, the types of flowers they do and don't like. My mother did that. So that's important and will help provide some guidance. You know, while a person is mourning the loss of a loved one, it's helpful to have as much information down to help them along the way of not only distributing your assets, but making sure that your services are what you wanted as well. In closing, I'm sure that many of this audience have their estate plans in place. It's a great accomplishment. It's something that is good to have done as you're getting ready to apply for Rivermead residents. It's never too late to put them in place or update them. There are many local, very good estate planning attorneys right here in Peterborough and not too far away from here. Or start with the attorney that you used if you're happy with them that drafted your original documents. So that is the end of what I'd like to say. And again, I'll be open for questions at the end of the presentation as well.
Right. Thank you for sharing that very useful information. I'm actually in the process of doing my estate planning stuff myself, and that's something that I don't always what to think about, but it is something that's good to do ahead of time. So I get to have the pleasure of kind of talking about all of the benefits that Rivermead provides residents while they're alive and active, and like all of the great quality of life things that Rivermead can bring to somebody. So I'm sharing my screen. I hope everybody can see that, but thought I'd start a little bit. I'm not sure where folks are from. I assume most people have some kind of connection to New Hampshire already, but as a transplant from North Carolina, I moved here about 10 years ago. I've learned to know and love New Hampshire quite well. We love doing things outdoors. There's so much natural and beauty. Just the New England culture is so great. I've really enjoyed all the folks that I've met here. There's so many good cultural and other things to do. It's close to a lot of big cities, also other lovely states to visit. It's a great place to, where you have a significantly lower tax burden than a lot of other places. And we've got a good healthcare system. We've got a good local hospital and Monadnock Community Hospital, and we also have systems in some of the larger cities in the area that do a really good job with healthcare. So from being a transplant from North Carolina 10 years ago, we found that New Hampshire is a great place to live and also to retire. So a little bit about what is a CCRC. A CCRC is a continuing care retirement community. So really the continuing care piece really represents that it's an organization that provides care and services and activities throughout a continuum, throughout the different phases of someone's life. Oftentimes folks join and whenever they move into independent living, whenever they're handling their own affairs, making their own plans, doing everything on their own, but they enter into a contract with the organization that will fix some of the cost and allow for the provision of additional care if and when it's needed in the future, often with no or little increase in cost whenever that care is needed. But I personally think the most important word of part of CCRC is community, and we really are a community where there's approximately 300 residents of Rivermead, about 300 staff members, and as a staff member, we have this unique opportunity where we work in the homes of our customers or the people that we serve. So we get to, know and become part of the lives of our residents. And I know that it's, enjoyed on the staff end. I believe it is on the resident end too, but it really is a good place to spend your days. And even though I don't live in a CCRC or Rivermead, at least not yet. I do spend a large part of my time there, and it is a good place to be from my experience and from what I've heard from others. In preparing for this presentation, I did a little research on how CCRCs came about. Apparently, they started in Europe as a way to provide care for seniors. But then as demographics changed, starting in around the 1960s, the kind of traditional or current CCRC model was formed. It was formed, I think Pennsylvania is kind of seen as the birthplace of CCRCs, where some of the oldest and the highest concentration currently are. But that model worked so well that it expanded throughout the country, up and down the East Coast, out in the West Coast. And, I think what Jennifer was saying at the beginning is really true. Once you've seen one CCRC, they often have very different stories about, how what they originated from. A lot were affiliated with religious organizations, some with civic organizations. Rivermead was actually formed by a group of citizens that just came together in the 80s and realized that there was a need for senior housing and services, and they banded together and formed a not-for-profit corporation that is Rivermead, and they worked with some consultants and put all the pieces together and started Rivermead, and it's grown into what it is now. But especially since the traditional model was started in the 1960s, we've really seen CCRCs, the number and size of them continue to grow as it's become a increasingly popular option for folks. So so why has that model worked so well, and why has it grown? And I almost had to cut this presentation short whenever they're asking me about benefits of CCRCs, because I, like Hazel, could talk about estate planning all day. I could talk about CCRCs and finance all day and all of the good things about it. But again, I really think the best thing is the community, getting to know and meet all of the various staff members that we have, the different people, and in my role, the different folks that we partner with and other organizations, and especially the residents. It's really interesting to get to hear folks' life stories and all of the things that they've done, and to share some of your stories. I'm fortunate. I've got three. I guess they're not too young children. They're middle high school age now, but I love sharing stories about them with the residents, and then hearing about some of the resident story. Some of the residents are talking about things that they invented that are now part of daily life. It's like, wow, you're the person that invented that. I remember I was especially impressed because I love the coast and the ocean, but a resident was telling me about how her and her husband sailed across the Atlantic Ocean and back a number of times back when there wasn't GPS and everything, and they were navigating by the stars, and just them on a sailboat going across the ocean. It's like, how cool is that? All of the different experiences that folks bring to the community and share with each other. So in my mind, that's the biggest benefit. But there's a whole lot of other ones, and I'm gonna share some of those too. Of course, also at the heart of organization and community is health and whole person wellness. It's not just nursing care. It's everything from holistic programming, making sure that there's all kinds of cultural activities, whether they're opportunities to go to plays and go to music performances or be part of those things. Rivermead offers those either on our campus or with partnerships with other organizations. We've in the last few years since I've been here, we built a brand new fitness center, and we've really been able to improve the programming with that now that we have that great space. Also, dining is a very important part of wellness, and we've got many dining options for whatever your preferences are, whether you're vegetarian or vegan or gluten-free, or we've got all kinds of things. So we really do have health and wellness is throughout our culture and all the services that we provide. Another thing that is really great is when you join a CCRC, there's so many things to do, but two, there's so many things that you don't have to do anymore that can free up time to do the things that you love, and your different activities that you're interested in. This is a short list. I could have gone on, but all of the things that come with owning a house in New England, the maintenance, snow removal, housekeeping, transportation, landscaping, all of those things are go away once you move to Rivermead, and that's one of the benefits is by wrapping that all up into a package, and as part of your contract, you'll know what your entrance fee is, what your monthly service fee is, know what to expect for adjustments in the future, but you won't have to worry about all of these individual items. And as an organization, and one of the main components of my role is making sure that we are able to acquire all of those resources in the most efficient manner possible. We have a lot of buying power so that we can do these things at a lower rate than individual homeowners can do. So oftentimes, if you look at what your budget is when you put all of those things together, and then you look at what your budget is at Rivermead, more often than not, you see that the monthly service fee that encompasses all of those things is often lower than what folks might have paid by doing things in their own individual home. So there's a saving on expenses, but also the huge savings on time because you don't have to worry about it. we've got a great team that worries about these things for you. Along that is that with that is the financial security, as you work with Jennifer and Jeremy and Dan to find what residence type, what entrance fee type option, what level of care you might want to join the community in. They will be able to help you determine what the costs are that to match those with your financial resources, and that will give you a degree of certainty so that you can kind of know what to expect for the rest of your life. It's a life care contract because that contract is a guarantee that we will provide these services for you and or your spouse if you come in as a couple for the rest of your life, and you have the certainty of knowing what these costs will be. I look back the last 15 plus years, our average monthly service fee was less than 4%. I think it was a little under 3.5% if you excluded the last couple of years, because inflation did make it a little bit higher. But if I was planning for the future, I would use a 3 to 4% estimated escalation cost over time, which is generally less than what inflation is in other areas. Another benefit is that even with the protection of the life care contract and the savings there, if you move to assisted living and you have a long-term care insurance policy in place, you can often have that long-term care insurance pay some or all of your monthly service fee once you do move to assisted living or memory support or nursing, and in some cases, depending on the policy, also if you have home health services. Another thing I forgot to mention about the financial security piece is when folks move into independent living, whatever that rate is for their monthly service fee, it will not increase when residents move to a higher level of care. So what the costs are in independent living is generally significantly less than what it would be in assisted living or memory support or with nursing care, of course. But you got to take that rate with you whenever you move to the higher level of care. There might be a few ancillary charges that get charged in addition to it, but generally there's not a significant change in the cost when you move from independent living to a higher level of care. That life care contract protects you from those increases in cost and locks in that lower rate for you. Another piece that's really helpful, and it's a huge benefit, is there a portion of entrance fees and monthly service fees. And again, I'm not able to give tax advice, so I'll use May here. But a lot of folks have been able to work with their tax preparers and been able to look at the amounts they pay for their entrance fees and monthly service fees, and deduct a percentage of that as a medical expense. And we've generally seen the IRS has accepted that. Almost all residents are able to take advantage of that. But what we do every year is we'll look at all of our expenses for the year for Rivermead as the organization. We'll determine what percentage of those are related to healthcare expenses, which has generally been in the 40 to 50% range. I think it was just a hair under 45% last year. But generally, folks can take the total of their monthly service fees and entrance fees and apply, roughly 45% of that towards the medical expense deduction. One that's often, helpful because it's those expenses in itself can reduce your taxable income, but also with the medical expenses, there's, I believe, a 10.5% of your income threshold, and it'll often get folks over that threshold. So then any other additional expenses are 100% deductible. So again, we can't provide tax advice, but we do provide a letter with a summary of all of your charges and the percentage and all of the information that you need to go to your tax preparer to have that deduction made if it applies to you, which we've found for most residents it does. Again, as I mentioned, And I think it's one of those things, sometimes when you take this inventory that, the previous two presenters were talking, about, when you take an inventory of all of the different expenses that you have, sometimes you start looking at them collectively and you're like, well, that's even more than I expected. But, almost all household expenses are either eliminated or significantly reduced. You might have a little bit of personal shopping for, some breakfast, lunch type items, but, you're gonna get a meal every day of, dinner is provided every day of the year. Almost everything else is provided. The only other expense I could really think is we do, suggest folks get renter's insurance, which is usually very cheap, but it just covers your own belongings in case something, that does happen. Rivermead, of course, would cover the building and, everything else that's the Rivermead property. But, generally the expenses go from, everything it would take to running the household to what might be just, some renter's insurance, the smaller grocery bill, and, then whatever your Medicare or other premiums, are for services that would be included, outside of Rivermead, that would, your Part D for your medicine and things like that. Also, by having, a consistent idea of what your cost of living will be, it makes it easier to simplify other components of your estate plan. I'm sure Hazel knows that if you have one thing that's kind of figured out, it allows you to make better decisions with the other parts of your estate plan. And then also there's the options for refundability of entrance fees. We have, different options, but two of the highest refundable options, 50% or the 90%, can guarantee that 50 or 90% respectively of your entrance fee would go to your, your heirs, either through your estate or through your trust. And we have options for folks passing those along in either of those ways. But another financial benefit is once you join the Rivermead community, you're one of us. Like, it is a life care contract, and we do mean that for life. We have never, not even once in our almost 30-year history, turned anyone away from their inability to pay. We do that first, on the front end, is whenever, Jennifer, Jeremy, and Dan would work with folks that they want to make sure that they move into a cottage or apartment or assisted living residence that suits their budget, so that it's something that matches up with their income and assets. We do a good job of working with folks with that, and by doing so, most people generally have plenty of funds to cover their cost of care at Rivermead, which is often, again, less than it might have been that they stayed at their home. But occasionally we do have folks that stay with us. It's usually the people that have, been here 15, 20 years that, through no fault of their own, have outlived their assets and don't have enough money to pay the full cost of care. And again, we have, 100% success rate with figuring out something for folks. And oftentimes, the way we figure that is working to provide financial assistance to kind of cover that gap in what they're no longer able to pay. The majority of that funding comes from our endowment that over the years we built to almost $2.5 million. So again, once you join our community, that life care contract does, assure you that we will provide care for you for your entire life. And if you run out of assets, we've got a lot of tools in our toolkit to be able to cover that gap if there ever indeed is one. So qualities of a strong CCRC is governance. That starts at the top to make sure that there's a good board of trustees that's running the organization. As a not-for-profit, we have a group of, I believe, 15 or 16 volunteers from the community. They all have different varied backgrounds. It's intentionally varied, so we get different perspectives. And they help us make, the big decisions of the community, like how and if we're going to grow, what our goals are, what our strategic plans are. And they also are charged with, hiring the CEO and to make sure that we've got a good leader in the management role, and that we're able to retain top talented staff from the management levels on down. Also, as a not-for-profit, Rivermead, we do have to run like a business because, we need to make sure that we're in existence for perpetuity. If we're going to promise to provide care to folks for their entire life, we have to make sure we're around essentially forever. But by being a not-for-profit, any earnings that we make are all circulated right back into the organization. There are no shareholders that are siphoning some money off the top and at the residents' expenses. All of the money that residents pay in comes right back to the residents to provide for Rivermead's and to further its mission. Management team, that's very important. I'm very lucky to work with a team of very talented individuals with varied backgrounds who are experts in their individual line of responsibility, whether it's maintenance or facilities or environmental services and housekeeping, that they're experts in their own area, but also within working within senior living in general. And then also community engagement, where we partner with lots of organizations to make sure we're not operating in an island, that we're a good corporate citizen, and we're also very active with Leading Aid, which is kind of an association of similar organizations, so we can share thoughts and ideas and best practices. Some other qualities of a strong financial institution are transparency. I feel very strongly about this myself, where I think that it's just as important. The residents are very, important shareholders or stakeholders in the organization, and Rivermead, they do not receive, watered down financial information. They get monthly, quarterly, and our annual audited financial statements, and they see the same thing that we send to our bankers, that we send to our finance committee, that we send to our board of trustees. It's all we have an online portal that folks can take a look at those. But we also know just having those reports isn't enough. We need to have some explanation with it. So we have quarterly reviews of our finances where we talk about the ups and downs. And I think, it's important if we do have unfavorable results to share those as much as the favorable results. And lately that they've been more favorable than not. So it's been great to share those. But I also believe if there is something that we're working on, we share that, and we wouldn't never try to hide anything from folks. We also have a very involved process where residents are through a series of meetings over the summer, kind of during our budget season, where we solicit input from residents and say, what's important for you? Like, we don't want to think that we know what residents' preferences are. We do have pretty good ideas management just by working with residents every day, talking with them, kind of knowing what their preferences are. We just did our annual survey, but we also just go straight to the source and ask people what would they like to see? What are things that maybe we're doing that's not really preferred, and things that we could sunset, and then what are the services or amenities that folks might want to add. And though, we can never do everything that everybody wants, I wish we could. We do put a lot of weight into that, into considering plans for the future. And then we also, we recently started this a few months ago. We just, we're once a month, we just have a roundtable where Laura, our CEO, and I will show up, and whoever wants to meet with us can talk about whatever. Our agenda is a blank piece of paper, and we will answer any questions that we can have with residents, as well as, if they have questions or comments or things that we need to do a little research on, we'll take those notes and get back to folks. And then, of course, if we are, an organization with a kind of open door policy. If anyone ever wants to meet with either of us as officers of the organization or any managers, folks can do that, of course. So we really try to be transparent and open, because the Rivermead is here to benefit our residents, and we want them to understand our finances, to be assured of Rivermead having a bright and long financial future, and also be involved in some of the decision making for the future, and what we budget for and plan for in the future. So looking at financial metrics, like how do you look at, if you were looking for some of the more quantitative measures for measuring the strength of CCRC, I would always refer folks to these three items. First is independent living occupancy. That measures, how full our independent living residences, because that, you know, a high occupancy rate tells folks two things. One, it means that, you know, the community is full. It's bringing in, you know, the most revenue because we have the most people here that are paying monthly service fees for the different independent living units that we have available. But even more than that, it tells us that it's a desirable community because we're full, because people are on the wait list. People are continue to join Rivermead. So that's probably the most important indicator. We see that 95 plus is considered excellent, and we're a hair below that at the end of last year, and some of that was due to we were renovating some units, and then they were kind of offline a little bit longer than expected. So, you know, looking at Rivermead's, you know, average occupancy for the last year, we were definitely in the good stable, just a hair or two below what is generally considered excellent. The next ratio is called a debt service coverage ratio, which it measures our ability to generate cash. It's like how much, you know, what is our cash flow? How much money are we making every year? And what it does is it looks at all of the cash revenues, and then it takes out all of the cash expenses, and whatever is left over, it compares it to our debt or bond payments. And if we could exactly pay our bond payments, that would be a ratio of 1. So of course you want to have some cushion and in there, and also, you know, have some extra money for, you know, capital improvements and things like that. So we have a covenant with our bank documents to promise that we'll keep that ratio at least a 1.2. Generally, a ratio of 1.5 to 2 is considered good or stable, and maybe of a 2.0 or higher is considered excellent. And again, similar to our occupancy, we're just a hair shy of hitting that kind of excellent mark of being over 2. Where last year we ended at a 1.85 for our debt service coverage ratio. That shows that our model is working, and that we're generating sufficient cash to, you know, meet all of our expenses, pay all of our debt, and then have some left over for savings and capital items. And the last thing is our days cash on hand, because sometimes folks say, how much money does an organization like Rivermead need to survive? And the answer is, it depends. Some organizations could have $20 million of unrestricted cash, and that could be plenty. And some organizations could have 200 million, and that's not anywhere near close enough. So the days cash on hand compares our total unrestricted cash to our cash expenses to see if we stopped today and we didn't take in any new revenue, we didn't, you know, deposit one check from today, how long could Rivermead operate before we would burn through our money? And you can see that, you know, right now we're at 318 days. At the end of last year, that's even ticked up a little bit. So we're getting close to, and probably by the end of 2024, we'll be able to operate for over a year in the scenario when we didn't, you know, that's how long our cash would last us. And, you know, all of those compare very favorable to other CCRCs in the area and across the country. So I might pause there and turn it back to Rivermead's marketing team, and then see if there are any questions.
So I just want to mention our next events that we have coming up here. The next one would be the Spring Real Estate Market Update. You probably have all heard in the news, the real estate market is hot. That's what we keep hearing. And I realize that could be tough to navigate for some folks who've lived in their home for many years, 30 plus years. And, you know, it's a different world now, how you buy and sell a home. So we're going to have this real estate market update. It's Sadie Halliday from the Halliday Group, and that's another virtual event on the 26th at 2 p.m. You'll get invitations from us like you normally do. And then here's one to mark your calendars for. This is a really wonderful event here on our campus, in-person event, the Tour Homes, Friday, May 10th. Our residents open up their homes and do the tours. So it's just lovely. It's great to interact with residents, see how they've decorated, see how they've made storage solutions for their apartments. They love to share. They love to tell their stories. They'll show the community areas. You know, you always hear it better from them because they're going to tell you how they use the community areas and Rivermead campus and how they enjoy it. So that's one to sign up for, Friday, May 10th at 2 p.m.
And I'm going to put in a little plug for assisted living and memory support. Friday, May 3rd at 2 o'clock, we have another Zoom. This one is going to be presented by the Alzheimer's Association. So very informative. It's going to talk about diagnosis, detection, the latest in clinical trials, basically how you can get involved. And I know that there'll be a great resource for questions if you have any. And then to piggyback on the tour of homes, we have a live event coming on Friday, May 31st at 2 o'clock. It is going to be a garden party here in our assisted living. You'll be able to look at spaces, both the common areas, the outdoor spaces. Hopefully all the flowers will be in bloom at that point and it'll be a nice sunny day. We'll have some refreshments, just a good, really good time, even if you're thinking or not even considering assisted living and you're looking at Rivermead independent living. Just come over, see what we have here, see what it's all about, because it's all part of the community. We're all one community, and just, you know, see the opportunities you have. So look forward to seeing you all there.
Thanks, Dan. And thank you, everybody. Thank you. And special thanks to Jeremy Blydenberg Cody for setting this whole thing up for us. We need him for our technology. So thank you. And take good care, everyone. Look forward to seeing you again sometime soon.
Yes, thanks, everyone.